The first Lego set announcement for April just dropped, and it is the Ideas River Steamboat. This has 4,090 pieces and will set you back $330 US. There are tons of details in the set, but because of time constraints, we're going to focus on three things. Number one, the cool building details. Number two, the intriguing aesthetics. And number three, what will Lego fans think of this, and will they snag it when it hits the shelves? Let's dive in. Now, there are a lot of really cool details that I noticed as I was looking at these images. The first thing I want to highlight is the fact that a lot of Lego boats typically use prefab hull pieces, and this one does use some of that, but notice on the back of the ship, you've got a lot of brick-built components, especially using inverted bow slopes. That's a really nice detail that's going to add contouring and allow this to really fit the aesthetic of the set, which I think is excellent, and I'm glad that Lego, while using some pieces efficiently, is able to give us a nice brick-built hull in sections. I also think the wheel, the paddle wheel, is really interesting. Now, it uses these Technic panel pieces to use as paddles. Now, that's a really cool technique, and the red color certainly makes it pop, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But it's interesting that this is going to be probably one of the most parts-intensive sections of the set, so I really hope you like Technic. Another thing that I noticed is that Lego uses quite a few snot techniques on the exterior of the ship, obviously here with some tiles, and along this first section here, they've got a lot of bow slopes to add contouring to the ship. It's a nice level of detail that brings some subtle contours that makes this, I think, more visually aesthetic. Another element that I like about this, and you think about Lego sets in the modern era, snot techniques that we just talked about, also unique angles. You take a look at the front of the ship, you've got some of the rigging that is connected at that end, at the bow, and there's quite a bit of unique angling going on with that. So that's another highlight of this particular set, as are these steps that are built into the wall. Now, some modulars have done this before, like in the bookshop, but this set has a really straightforward staircase, but it fits so nicely with what they're doing with the set using the 1x4 rounded Technic plates. I really like how Lego did that there. Now, we'll unpack the aesthetic with the second overall point that we make, but I also want to spend some time highlighting the details in the interior of the steamboat. You'll notice here in the dining room, this really pops out to me. They use some snot techniques to get the 4x4 plates upside down as tables, and allows you to do some different things with populating the table. Like, for instance, using what looks to be a dark orange rose petal that is used as a bun. Look at how they build the lampshades and the flower arrangements there. Also, check out the seats. You've got some Technic pieces used as the seat bags, really fascinating techniques, and that doesn't even include some really cool tile patterning on the floor. You also see in the boiler room section that they incorporate the play features into the internal aesthetic. That's a really fascinating way to do this, where you look like you have this ship that's using all the gears, all the boilers, and generating the steam to power the engine, but it's just the Technic play features that allow you to control the rudder and the wheel. So it's really nice how Lego did that. I also want to highlight the stage. Now, this is really interesting because there's a lot of stuff in this one particular room, not a lot of space. So you've got some instruments like the violin. You also have a drum set. Now, the drum set makes sense for the amount of space that's there. Of course, it's kind of a dinky drum set, and of course, there's no place for the drummer to sit, which kind of is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to Lego drum sets, but it is creative. And then you have these tables where minifigs could theoretically stand and enjoy the music, although there's a limited space for any sort of a dance floor. Another highlight of the interior is near the top when you have the bunk room and the bathroom. Now, the bunk room is something we've seen pretty typically in various sets like the Burrow and others, but note the bathroom. You've got a shower head and a drain underneath. You've got a toilet. It's a really nice bathroom, and the tile patterning, I know it's a lot of dark blay and light blay, but it does fit what you're going for in the bathroom. And of course, I also want to note there's a kitchen in this steamboat, which has quite a bit of detail as well. So Lego is really packing a lot into the interior of the set. Now, those details are fascinating, and I think they're really engaging for the build process, which I think is going to be a lot of fun if you get the set. But there's something that pulls you in to the set before you even look at the interior details, and that's the aesthetic of the set. Now, there's something about this that I find compelling, and I've seen a lot of comments, whether it's on Brickset or Reddit, other places, where people look at the set and they say, you know what, it's not for me, but it's really intriguing. It's gorgeous, or it's fascinating, or there's something about this that just makes it pop. And so I want to explore that a little bit. Now, because it's an idea set, we do have the original submission to compare this to. Now, the original submission uses even more white and more blaze than the one that we actually have. This one takes a lot more tans, regular tan, dark tan, and then adds some colors around that. Lots of white. And there are a couple things that I think really pop about the official Lego set. The first one, of course, is the red paddle wheel, which was included in the original submission, and that red just pops out at you very, very quickly, very noticeable. The other thing, and it's a subtle detail, is the dark blue bunting at the top. Your eyes are drawn to that. Now, that wasn't included in the original submission, but at the top of the Lego set, you do have that bunting with some white croissants mixed in there, reminiscent of the old Parisian cafe. And I think that it's a really nice detail that sets your eye and grabs your attention. Another difference that we see on the general aesthetic is that I do believe this is a little bit shorter, which makes it stockier. It maybe feels a little bit squished compared to the original one, but certainly from what I've read, could be generally accurate, given that you've got to navigate small, sharp bends in rivers like the Mississippi River that this is potentially modeled after. Now, another thing that strikes me as interesting, and it's a very small detail, but you take in the original submission the life preservers that are behind the pillars, and then in the Lego set you move them in front of the exterior, and that allows you to have just something else to look at. I know they're black and they don't, really stand out as a bright, bold color, but it definitely sets your eye a little bit differently compared to all the white. And of course, for that matter, you do have the twin smokestacks that are black as well, with some gold elements mixed in. That does give it a little bit of color and allows it to pop a little bit. Besides the actual color combinations and maybe some of the contouring and proportions, I think something about this just screams early 20th century, late 19th century history, and it has that charm. It reminds me a little bit of the old fishing store, one of the first idea sets, or one of the early idea sets, because that one just had its charms. It was a great building. I enjoyed building it. I'm glad we have that set. Of course, it was much cheaper than this one, but it has that old time feel, and I think a lot of people resonate with that particular look, and I think that's going to help it. It also could be the sticker that says Amelia, which is maybe a call out to the Amelia Wheaton, which is a steamboat from the Pacific Northwest here in the United States from around that time frame. I don't know, one Redditor commented on that, so maybe that's what it's based off of, or maybe it's somebody's friend, family member, spouse, mother, or something like that, where they decided to include that. But there's just something about that name and that historical period that draws a lot of people to it. So the big question that I think I have in looking at this, is this something that a lot of Lego fans are going to be into, or is this something that's going to be more niche? Now, to put this in context, this is the fourth announced idea set of 2025. The first one being the Twilight set, and then you have two competition winners with the Evolution of Steam, and then this micro neoclassic space set that's going to be coming out later that Lego just announced this past week. So this one's the fourth one, and for additional context, it is the largest idea set ever. It comes in at about 140 pieces more than the Home Alone set. So not only is it one of the more expensive ones, it's also the biggest one, and I think Lego is really giving us a lot of detail. But note that this has a little, some flaws to it. Maybe some nits to pick, if you will. First of all, there are no minifigs with this particular set, which I think allows them to put this at $330 US while still giving you 4,000 plus pieces. The lack of minifigs, I think, is a problem, just in the sense of a lot of people love minifigs, and so I think that might pull some of the appeal from the set for some people. Not all, but for some people. Now, when you look at the scale of this set, I think it is close to minifig scale, but not quite there. And I think if you look at the dining room, the seats and the way they're configured compared to the tables does that. Although you look at the bunks, the shower, the bathroom, that looks to be pretty normal. But there are so many cramped spaces, it's hard to really envision how minifigs are going to interact with this pretty well. On the other hand, I will note that LEGO has released micro scale or non-minifig scale sets in the past, like the Titanic, and that has really been a huge success for LEGO. So I'm not sure that just the lack of minifigs itself means the set isn't going to sell well. Rather, it may not have as big of a market appeal as if it did have those minifigs. Of course, another part of the context of this set is what else is coming out at the time. This is a huge and expensive set. People just went through the March releases that included the Sunflower Van Gogh set, the Ninjago City Workshops, and some other sets. Of course, that's on the heels of January, which had a ton of LEGO sets come out, many of which were expensive, and people are still saving up and maybe looking to get some of those sets. And that doesn't even include some sets that came out in the past year, year and a half that people might still be working toward. And of course, there are future releases that people are looking at. Like at this moment, you've got the T-Rex skeleton that's been announced for the middle of March, plus the not yet to be announced but rumored Bag End, which would be coming out in April as well, according to those rumors. And then, of course, the rumored Star Wars sets that are coming out in May. We know that LEGO always gives us May 1st to May 4th release, a couple of releases in Star Wars, and people, again, could be saving up money for that. So in the immediate context, it's going to be interesting to see if this flies off the shelves. I will say that the March sets, from our vantage point at our LEGO store, really weren't flying off the shelves, although people were buying Sunflowers, Trevi, Fountain, and other sets like the Ninjago City Crossroads. So there is some market for this. I'm just curious if it's going to go really, really quickly and if this really does pop. I will say, looking at the brick set poll, which is not scientific, there is maybe a little bit of suggestion that people aren't really into the set in terms of buying it, even if they like how it looks, because the aesthetic is really compelling. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on getting this set. Thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.